right here. Hey, that way, baby. Now listen up. Everybody keeps calling themselves lazy like they ain't got what it takes, but let me tell you something, you, not la joie, right here. You're just carrying too much weight on the inside. That ain't weakness. That's emotional exhaustion. And today we're going to lift that weight off your shoulders one rep at a time. When people look at their lives, right here, they often throw around the word lazy as if it explains everything. They wake up late, avoid responsibilities. They scroll on their phone instead of working on their goals right here, and immediately they point the finger inward and say, I'm lazy, I'm useless, I don't have discipline. That label becomes a hammer, smashing down on their self-esteem day after day. But the truth is, most of those who call themselves lazy aren't actually lazy at all. Laziness is the absence of willingness. Laziness is a lack of drive. Laziness is when you don't want to move forward, right? Even though you have the energy and the clarity to do so. What most people are experiencing is not laziness, it's exhaustion. Not physical exhaustion alone, but emotional exhaustion that eats away at your motivation, right? Your clarity and your ability to act. Think about it like this. When you go to the gym and push your body beyond its limits, you feel sore. You feel drained right here. And sometimes you can't even get yourself under the bar the next day. Nobody calls that laziness. They call it recovery. They understand that your body is worn down and it needs time to repair. Thing right here. But when your mind goes through the same process, when you've been carrying stress, carrying worry, carrying self-doubt, carrying unresolved pain, suddenly you don't have the same fire. You don't have the same energy. Right here, you can't push forward the way you want. And instead of understanding that you're drained, you call yourself lazy. That's the lie exhaustion tells you it wears a mask. Right here, and that mask says lazy. But underneath that mask is someone who's been working too hard, not too little. Someone who's been fighting battles nobody else can see. Right? Maybe you've been holding yourself together for your family, showing up at work when you don't feel like it, smiling when you're hurting, keeping secrets that weigh on you, hiding pain that nobody knows about. Right here. Maybe you've been living with constant uncertainty, financial pressure, or fear about the future. That mental weight adds up. Every little decision, every little choice, every little what if is another pound on your back, and then you wonder why you can't sprint forward. You wonder why you can't just leap out of bed full of energy. Right here, you're not lazy. You're carrying more than people realize. It's easy for the outside world to judge. People look at the surface and they only see your behavior. They see you resting. They see you disengage. Here, they see you saying, not today, and they slap on the label lazy. But they don't see what came before. They don't see the sleepless nights where your thoughts kept spinning. Right here, they don't see the way you've been fighting to keep yourself together. They don't see the silent storms inside of you. They don't see the way your nervous system has been on overdrive. Right here, like a car engine running too hot for too long. That's not laziness, that's burnout, that's emotional fatigue. That's the cost of carrying too much weight without rest. Think about a professional athlete. They train, they push, they work at the highest levels, but they also have off seasons. They schedule rest. They understand that if you want peak performance, you need peak recovery. Right here. Now think about your own life. How many off seasons have you given yourself? How many times have you allowed yourself to step back, recharge, and rebuild without guilt? Most people never do. Most people live as if life is one long season with no breaks, no rest, no pause button. They think the only way forward is through nonstop motion, and then they wonder why they collapse halfway down the track. Right here. You can't call that laziness. That's simply the body and the mind crying out for recovery. There's another thing people don't realize. Emotional exhaustion changes how the brain works. It messes with your ability to focus, your ability to plan, your ability to stick with tasks. It makes every little step feel heavier. So when you say, I know what I need to do right here, but I just can't get myself to do it, that's not laziness, that's your brain sending out warning signals that you're overstretched. Your energy tank isn't full enough to power through the work. Right here, and so your system resists. It's the same as trying to drive a car with no fuel. You don't call the car lazy. You recognize it needs to be filled up. What makes this problem even more painful is that exhaustion feeds guilt here, and guilt feeds exhaustion. When you label yourself as lazy, you start to believe it, and that belief drains you even further. You say to yourself, I'm lazy, so what's the point? And I'll never change. And that mindset strips away the little motivation you had left. But when you flip the script, when you stop saying, I'm lazy, and start saying, I'm tired, I'm drained, here, I need recovery, then suddenly you have a way out. Laziness is a dead end, but exhaustion is a signal. It's telling you to rest, recharge, and rebuild before you move forward again. Here, right here, look back at your life and think about the times you labeled yourself lazy. Were you truly unwilling, or were you just overwhelmed most of the time, people will realize it wasn't about not caring, it was about being drained. Right here, take the student who puts off studying, not because they don't want a better future, but because they've been under constant pressure from school, family, and themselves. Right here, take the parent who comes home from work and collapses on the couch, not because they don't care about their kids, but because their energy has already been burned out by the demands of the day. Right here, take the dreamer who procrastinates on their goals, not because they don't want success, but because they've been carrying the fear of failure for so long that their nervous system has shut down to protect them. Here, none of this is laziness, it's exhaustion wearing a disguise. If you really think about it, laziness is actually rare. Most people want better lives. Most people want success, love, health, and happiness. If you ask anyone, would you like more energy, more money, more peace? The answer is yes. Laziness is not the default. Here, what's far more common is people who desperately want change but can't summon the strength to act because they're burned out before they even start. Right here, it's like trying to lift a heavy barbell when your muscles are already torn down. You're not weak, you're just in need of recovery. This is why compassion is so powerful. Right here, when you look at yourself and you stop calling yourself lazy and instead recognize you're exhausted, you start to treat yourself differently. Instead of punishment, you give yourself permission to rest. Instead of shame, you give yourself understanding, and that understanding is the first step to rebuilding your energy. When you treat exhaustion with compassion, you stop adding unnecessary weight to your back. You stop draining yourself further with guilt and self-criticism. You start to create space for healing, and once healing begins, energy follows. But here's the challenge. Exhaustion convinces you that rest is weakness. Right here, it whispers that if you stop, you'll fall behind. It tells you that everyone else is outworking you, and so you have to keep pushing. That voice is dangerous because it keeps you locked in the cycle of burnout. Here, true strength is knowing when to rest and when to push. Just like in training, you don't hit the same muscle every single day without recovery. If you do, it breaks down instead of growing. Your mind works the same way. Right here, when you keep hammering it with stress and responsibility without rest, it breaks down instead of building resilience. Recognizing exhaustion is not weakness, it's wisdom. So the next time you find yourself lying in bed, right here, staring at the ceiling, unable to move, don't jump straight to the word lazy. Ask yourself, what am I carrying that nobody can see? What invisible weight is pressing me down? Maybe it's stress, maybe it's grief, hey, maybe it's fear, maybe it's shame, maybe it's simply the accumulation of too many responsibilities. Whatever it is, it explains your fatigue. It doesn't define your character. You're not broken, you're not worthless. Right here, you're not lazy, you're tired, and tired people don't need judgment, they need rest, understanding, and a plan to recharge. Even when you rest, guilt tries to sneak in. You sit down to breathe, right here, and suddenly your mind says, you should be doing more, you should be grinding harder, you should be working while everyone else is sleeping. That's the voice of a culture obsessed with productivity. Right here, not the voice truth. Rest is not wasted time, rest is the fuel for productivity. Rest is what allows you to go harder, longer, stronger when it's time to move. Without rest, there is no sustained performance. Without rest, you burn out halfway through the journey. Without rest, you confuse exhaustion for laziness and end up punishing yourself unnecessarily. Imagine you had a friend who was clearly exhausted, clearly overwhelmed, clearly running on empty. Would you call them lazy? Would you tell them they're worthless? No. You'd probably tell them to take care of themselves, to breathe, to recharge. But when it comes to yourself, right here, you speak with less kindness. You beat yourself down with harsh words when what you really need is the same compassion you give to anyone else. That shift in perspective alone can change your life. Right here. Because when you stop treating exhaustion as laziness, you start treating yourself with the care required to get back in the game. When people talk about growth, discipline, and hard work, they love to bring up the body. Here, they say things like train harder, push further, grind every day. And in the gym, we all understand what that means, but we also understand balance. Right here, nobody would ever walk into the gym and hit the same muscle group with maximum weight every single day without rest, because that's not how growth works. If you bench press heavy on Monday, you don't do the exact same workout Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. You give those muscles time to recover, to rebuild, to grow stronger. The stress of the lift isn't what makes you stronger. Here, it's the recovery afterward that builds the muscle. And yet, when it comes to the mind, most people forget that truth. They expect their brain to operate with endless endurance. No downtime, no pause, no recovery period. Right here, they treat mental performance like a machine that never needs to shut down. And then they wonder why they collapse, why they lose motivation, why they feel stuck. Your mind works on the same principles as your body. Right here, stress is like training. Every challenge, every responsibility, every decision is a weight. Lifting that weight makes you stronger. but only if you give yourself space to recover from it. If you never let up, right here, if you never allow rest, then the same thing that was meant to make you stronger ends up breaking you down. Emotional strain works just like overtraining in the gym. At first, you might feel fine. You keep pushing here, keep hustling, keep saying no days off. But slowly, your performance drops, your motivation shrinks, your energy crashes, and you start to feel like something's wrong with you, like maybe you're just weak. Right here, the truth is nothing's wrong with you at all. You just forgot the law of recovery. Think about the last time you went through a high-pressure situation. Maybe it was exams, maybe it was a big project at work, maybe it was a family crisis. During those moments, you kept your mind locked in, your focus sharp, your energy high. You were grinding mentally the way an athlete grinds physically. But what happened after it was all over? Here, you probably felt drained, maybe even numb. You couldn't just snap back into full productivity the next day. Your body and mind demanded recovery. Hey, here, that's not failure, that's the system doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Your brain is built for cycles of stress and rest, not endless stress with no release. The problem is, here, society doesn't honor mental recovery the way it honors physical recovery. If someone takes a rest day from the gym, people understand. But if someone takes a mental rest day, people call it lazy, weak, or unproductive. Here. And so people ignore the signals their brain is sending. They push harder and harder, stacking stress upon stress, until their mind shuts down altogether. That shutdown isn't laziness, it's forced recovery. Right here, it's the mind saying, if you won't give me space, I'll take it from you. What happens to a muscle that never recovers? It tears, it breaks, it gets injured. What happens to a mind that never recovers? Right here, it collapses into burnout, depression, anxiety, and hopelessness. The very tool you need to live your life. Your brain becomes foggy, unmotivated, and resistant. That's not a lack of willpower. Right here, that's the predictable result of neglecting mental recovery. Every athlete understands periodization, cycles of training, rest, and rebuilding. Imagine applying that to your mental life. Imagine treating your brain like a world-class muscle. You'd push it hard during work, study, or training, but you'd also give it intentional rest. And right here, you'd recognize that breaks are not wasted time, but necessary fuel for the next round of performance. You wouldn't feel guilty for stepping away. You'd see it as part of the program. Here, that's the shift people need to make. Recovery isn't the opposite of discipline. Recovery is part of discipline. Here's the thing about mental fatigue. It's sneaky. With your muscles, you can feel soreness right here. You can feel fatigue. You can see when your strength is down. But with your brain, the signals are more subtle. It shows up as procrastination. It shows up as irritability. It shows up as distraction, forgetfulness. Right here, lack of focus. It shows up as sitting there staring at the work you know you should do, but feeling like you're running through quicksand. Those aren't signs of laziness. Here, those are signs that your brain is fatigued and crying out for recovery. If you take two athletes with the same potential, the same strength, the same skill, right here, the one who knows how to rest and recover will always outperform the one who doesn't. The same is true for mental performance. You can have all the talent, all the intelligence, all the potential in the world right here. But if you don't honor your recovery, you'll burn out before you ever reach your peak. The person who learns how to rest effectively will outlast, outwork, and outperform the one who tries to grind nonstop. Hey, because recovery is not about stopping. Recovery is about preparing for your next level. Most people think they're losing because they lack discipline, right here. But the real problem isn't a lack of discipline, it's a lack of energy. And the lack of energy comes from a lack of recovery. You can't give your best when your tank is empty. Here, you can't focus when your mind is cluttered with unprocessed stress. You can't grind hard when your system has been running on fumes for too long. That's why recovery is not optional. It's the foundation. Without it, right here, you'll mistake exhaustion for laziness, and you'll keep punishing yourself for something that isn't your fault. Look at some of the greatest performers in any field. Athletes, musicians, entrepreneurs, creators. They don't just train hard, they rest hard, they meditate, they sleep, they step away, they allow their minds to reset. They understand that recovery isn't weakness, it's strategy. Michael Jordan took days off. Kobe Bryant slept like his career depended on it. Champions schedule recovery because they know it fuels longevity. But the average person refuses themselves the same privilege, thinking that constant motion equals progress. And they collapse, call it laziness. Think about sleep. Sleep is the ultimate recovery tool for the brain. When you sleep, your brain literally clears out toxins, resets neural pathways, organizes memories, and restores energy. But how many people cut their sleep short, bragging about only needing 5 hours, and then wonder why they feel sluggish and unmotivated the next day? That's not laziness, it's sleep deprivation. Right here, it's like going into the gym after pulling an all-nighter and asking yourself why you can't hit a new personal record. It's obvious in the gym, but for some reason it's invisible in life. Right here, Another form of recovery is silence and stillness. Just like muscles need time without tension, the brain needs time without input. Yet in today's world, people flood their brains with constant noise, scrolling. Right here, notifications, endless stimulation. There's never a moment of true rest. No wonder attention spans shrink. No wonder people feel overwhelmed. The brain never gets the silence it needs to reset. Right here, just like your muscles don't grow during the workout, your brain doesn't grow during the stimulation. It grows during the recovery afterward. That's when connections solidify, creativity sparks, clarity returns. Without stillness, the brain stays in survival mode, and survival mode drains energy fast. You wouldn't blame a sprinter for slowing down after running 10 races back to back. Right here, you wouldn't call them lazy. You'd say they're exhausted. But when you run your mind through back to back stress, you don't give yourself the same grace. You beat yourself down instead of recognizing that recovery is the missing piece. That mindset needs to shift. Because the truth is your brain, just like your muscles, is designed to come back stronger after rest. And when you honor recovery, you don't just regain what you lost, actually grow. You build resilience, creativity, problem-solving ability, and mental toughness. Recovery multiplies your strength. But here's where discipline comes in. Recovery doesn't happen by accident. It has to be intentional. Just like you program rest days into a workout schedule, you have to program recovery into your life. That means sleep that you protect as non-negotiable. That means time away from screens, time in silence, time with nature, time for laughter and play. That means giving your brain the fuel it needs. Nutrition, hydration, right here, exercise to recover properly. If you treat your brain like an athlete treats their body, you'll stop confusing exhaustion for laziness. You'll understand that when you feel unmotivated, here, it's not always a sign to push harder, it's often a sign to recover smarter. What makes this idea powerful is that it turns recovery into a strategy instead of a shame. Too many people see recovery as downtime, wasted time, a break from progress. But in reality, recovery is progress. Recovery is where the growth happens. Recovery is where the breakthroughs form. Recovery is where the strength builds. The training, the stress, the grind, that's only half the equation. The other half is giving your brain the recovery. It needs to turn that stress into growth. Right here. Everybody talks about discipline like it's this mysterious power that only a chosen few are born with. They act like discipline is something magical that falls from the sky. Here, like some people just wake up with unshakable willpower while the rest are doomed to procrastination. But that's not the truth. Discipline doesn't come out of nowhere. It doesn't grow in chaos. Right here, it doesn't thrive in confusion. Discipline is fueled by clarity, emotional clarity. When your emotions are tangled, when your mind is cluttered with doubt, fear, shame, guilt, or uncertainty, your discipline runs on empty. Right here, you try to push forward, but every step feels like a fight against yourself. On the other hand, when your emotions are clear, when you know what you're chasing, why you're chasing it, right here, and you feel aligned with your purpose, discipline becomes natural. It stops being about forcing yourself to act and starts being about following the fire inside of you. Think about it like this. When you're in the gym and you've got a clear vision of the body you want to build, every rep makes sense. Every set has purpose. The pain doesn't stop you. It pushes you. Right here, you don't have to beg yourself to pick up the weight because you know why you're there. That's emotional clarity. But if you wander into the gym with no plan, no goal, no fire in your chest, every weight feels heavier than it is. Every exercise feels pointless. You get bored, you get distracted, you leave early. That's not because you lack discipline. It's because you lack clarity. Here, your emotions aren't aligned with your actions. Now take that same principle and apply it to life. People say, I can't stay disciplined. I keep procrastinating. I don't stick with habits. But most of the time, right here, the problem isn't a lack of self-control. It's a lack of emotional clarity. They don't know why they're doing what they're doing. They're chasing goals someone else told them to chase. Right here, they're living out scripts written by society, family, peers, or social media. And because the goals aren't connected to their own emotions, discipline becomes a battle they can't win. Right here, you can force yourself for a little while, but without clarity, the fire burns out. Emotional clarity gives discipline its fuel. It's the difference between dragging yourself out of bed and jumping out of bed with purpose. Right here, if you're waking up every day to grind for something you don't actually care about, you'll feel resistance. But if you're waking up to chase a vision that lights you up, resistance doesn't stand a chance. Right here, you're still going to face obstacles, you're still going to face pain, but discipline stops being about making yourself do it and starts being about refusing to let go of what matters to you. People underestimate how much emotions drive discipline. They think discipline is all logic, all willpower, all self-denial. But that's not how human beings work. Emotions are the engine. Logic is the steering wheel. Here, you can have the best steering wheel in the world, But if the engine has no fuel, you're not moving anywhere. Right here, that's why people fail when they try to discipline themselves through pure willpower without addressing their emotional state. They try to push the car without starting the engine, and eventually they collapse from exhaustion. Right here, when you get clear on your emotions, when you know what you want and why you want it, your discipline multiplies. If you've ever seen somebody training for something they truly care about, a fighter before a championship, right here, a student chasing their dream career, a parent working to give their kids a better future, you can see the difference. They don't rely on motivation that comes and goes. They're fueled by something deeper. Right here, their emotions are locked in, their purpose is clear, and that clarity turns into unstoppable discipline. They don't ask themselves, do I feel like it today? Because the answer doesn't matter. Right here, the why is bigger than the temporary feeling. This is why so many people quit before they reach their goals. It's not because they're weak. It's because they're unclear. They think they want something, but deep down, right here, it's not connected to their emotions. They say they want to get fit, but what they really want is confidence or self-respect, and they never take the time to acknowledge that truth. They say they want money, right here, but what they really want is freedom or security, and they never admit that. They say they want success, but what they really crave is love, validation, or legacy. Right here, when the surface level goal isn't aligned with the deeper emotional need, discipline collapses. But when you dig deep and get clear, when you align the surface goal with the emotional core, suddenly discipline feels different. Here, imagine two people running. One is running because they feel like they should exercise. The other is running because their doctor told them if they don't get healthy, right here, they won't live long enough to see their children grow up. Who's going to have more discipline? It's not even close. The second person has emotional clarity. Their emotions are locked down to the reason, right here, and that reason powers their discipline like rocket fuel. Another example, two students preparing for exams. One is studying because they have to, or because their parents said so. Here, the other is studying because they want to build a future where they can break out of poverty and change the trajectory of their family forever. The same books, the same material, right here, the same hours, but the discipline level will be completely different because emotional clarity transforms discipline from an external demand into internal drive. Here, people look at high performers and think they're built differently, like they have superhuman discipline. But what sets them apart isn't magic. It's clarity. They know exactly what they want right here, and they've tied it to their emotions so strongly that quitting doesn't even feel like an option. Their vision cuts through the fog of doubt. Their why is so powerful it silences the excuses. Right here, that's what fuels them when everyone else gives up. If you've ever had a moment where you were absolutely clear on what you wanted, you know what I'm talking about. Here, remember a time when you wanted something so badly it consumed you. Maybe it's making a team, landing a job, proving someone wrong, or chasing a dream. In that moment, you didn't need to trick yourself into discipline. Here, you didn't need to force it. Discipline was automatic. You were locked in. That's the power of emotional clarity. It turns discipline from a grind into a natural extension of who you are. But when emotions are cloudy, discipline dies. Confusion kills discipline. Doubt kills discipline. Unresolved pain kills discipline. When your mind is filled with noise, your energy scatters. You waste willpower fighting battles inside your own head. Here. And by the time you face the real task of the day, you're already drained. That's why emotional clarity is so critical. Right here. It's not just about knowing what you want. It's about clearing the noise that blocks you from pursuing it with focus. This is why mental recovery connects directly to discipline. When you give your mind space to rest, right here, you create room for clarity. When you slow down, you can actually hear your own emotions instead of drowning in the noise of the world. And once you hear them, once you understand them, you can align your discipline with them. And right here, without that process, you'll keep mistaking exhaustion for laziness and confusion for lack of discipline. But the truth is you're not broken, you're just unclear. Think about relationships. Right here, how many people stay disciplined in love when their emotions are clear, when they know why they're there, when they feel connected, when they're aligned with their partner? Discipline comes naturally. They show up right here, they commit, they stay loyal, they put in effort. But when the emotions get cloudy, when resentment builds, when doubt creeps in, discipline fades. Right here, it's not they suddenly lost all discipline, it's that the emotional clarity is gone. That same principle applies to every area of life. Discipline is not about change. Here, it's not about forcing yourself against your will every single day. It's about alignment. When your emotions and your vision are aligned, discipline feels less like punishment and more like purpose. Right here, you don't drag yourself, you drive yourself. You don't crawl through life, you charge. That's why the most disciplined people often look like the most passionate, because discipline and passion are not opposites, they're teammates. Passion fuels clarity, clarity fuels discipline, and discipline fuels progress. Right here, the people who struggle with discipline aren't broken, they're disconnected. They haven't taken the time to dig deep and ask themselves the hard questions. What do I really want? Why do I want it? What am I afraid of? Right here, what pain am I carrying that's clouding my vision? Answering those questions creates clarity, and clarity flips the switch. Suddenly, the habits that felt impossible start to stick. The routines that felt like torture start to feel like momentum. That's the transformation clarity brings. If you think about it, discipline without clarity is like driving with the gas pedal down but no destination. Right here, you'll burn fuel, you'll wear out the car, but you won't arrive anywhere meaningful. That's how most people live. They push themselves through endless motion without ever defining their why. Here, no wonder they feel exhausted, no wonder they feel unmotivated, no wonder they call themselves lazy. But once you set the destination, once you lock in the reason, every mile has meaning, and meaning creates endurance. This is why emotional clarity is not optional, it's essential. It's the root system of discipline. You can try to fake it for a while, but eventually the truth comes out. Discipline fueled by fear, guilt, here, or external pressure burns out. Discipline fueled by emotional clarity lasts. It lasts through obstacles, through setbacks, through pain, through fatigue. Because when your emotions are clear, quitting doesn't make sense. Right here, when your emotions are clear, excuses lose their power. When your emotions are clear, discipline stops being something you try to build. It becomes something you live.